Hello guys, we are back in new fanfic, and if enjoying this then please share and like part 1. Now let's start the fanfic. Black Sunset. Tsunade Senju sits at her desk and deals with the bane of all Cage, that being paperwork. She has fair skin with honey brown eyes and straight blonde hair that parts above her forehead. Her hair has shoulder-length bangs that frame her face and the rest reaches her lower back. She wears a gray and sleeveless kimono blouse with a blue obi and capri pants, with strappy-heeled sandals. Tsunade places her pen down with a sigh and rubs her eyes, before picking up a photo of a boy with blonde hair and blue eyes, but his most striking feature were 3 whiskers on each cheek. Oh Naruto. I wish you were still here, Tsunade thought. 3 years have passed since Naruto left on a training trip with her former teammate Jiraiya, but 2.5 years since Naruto died. 6 months after leaving, Jiraiya returned proclaiming Naruto had been captured by the Akatsuki. Tsunade collapsed the moment Jiraiya had spoken those words but steeled herself to call an immediate council meeting. The civilian side of council cheered learning of Naruto's soon-to-be death, while the shinobi side were indifferent. However, Danzo seemed stoic and unconcerned on the matter but called for her sensei's law to be repealed. Tsunade tried to protest this, but both councils outvoted her and the law repealed. Those bastards. I feel like a damn figurehead now. Using my grief for Naruto to slowly take power from me and poison everyone against you. Well, almost everyone, Tsunade thought. She rises from her seat and grabs her green haori, heading to the roof of the tower for some much-needed fresh air. The Godime looks up at the sunset but senses a presence and turns to a tall and hooded figure. Hello Hokage-sama, he says. He wears dark blue hybrid Hakama ninja pants with calf-length boots, a long-sleeve black shirt. A 3/4 length gray and hooded coat with a black glove on his right hand. Who are you? Tsunade says, flaring her chakra to alert the Anbu. Sorry, they won't be coming. The moment you walked on the roof. A barrier was erected to give us privacy, he says. Tsunade's eyes narrow and she clenches her fists. Damn it. He may be acting casual but he's completely on guard, she thought. So what do you want? Tsunade states. The figure removes his hood and reveals short black hair with a half mask to cover the lower half of his face, but his slitted blue eyes stood out. Call me Menma for now. I want to know about the Kyuubi Jinchuriki, he says, and Tsunade freezes and her eyes flicker. I've been in Konoha for a few days and asked around. Getting the same answer that he was a demon incarnate and glad he was dead, Menma says, but Tsunade was trembling. Shut up. Naruto was a good kid and this village didn't deserve him. He didn't deserve to captured and killed by the Akatsuki, Tsunade shouts. Menma clenches his gloved fist. So that's what that perverted toad told you, huh? He says. Tsunade slowly nods and Menma tsks with a hiss. Well, that was lie. The truth, it was Jiraiya himself and 3 squads of Nei, he says. What? You're lying. Tsunade shouts, but Menma raises his hand to his mask and slowly pulls it down, revealing dark and thick whiskers on his cheeks. I'm not Ba-chan because I was there, Menma shouts and Tsunade's eyes widen. Naruto. Tsunade says, her voice breaking. Menma, or rather Naruto, pulls the Shadaime necklace from his shirt. You gave this to me after I won our bet with the Rasengan, he says. Tsunade covers her mouth as tears run down her face. How? Why? She says. The pervert is working for Danzo Shimura. 2 months after we left. He showed his true colors. Saying he was handing me over to Danzo to make me a weapon for him. I thought he was joking, but the 3 squads of Nei said otherwise, Naruto says. How did you escape? Tsunade states, trying to wrap her head around this. Shadow clones, but Jiraiya caught up and tried to cut off Kurama. Naruto starts, but Tsunade furrows her brow. That's the fox's real name. He sent a surge of chakra through the seal to fry the seals Jiraiya put on me, he adds. Tsunade sees Naruto's eyes flicker in rage and sorrow. He sacrificed himself for me, but his sacrifice was not in vain. By doing this, he made me the new Kyuubi, he says, revealing 9 white fox tails and black fox ears on his head. Because of this, I was able to escape Jiraiya's grasp, Naruto says, but Tsunade slams into him with a tight hug. Naruto was taller than her and her forehead touches his chin. Naruto, I'm so sorry, she whispers. It's not your fault, Ba-chan, Naruto says, and Tsunade pulls back. But why did Jiraiya wait another 4 months to come back? Tsunade says. He was searching for me and was cooking up a story for Danzo, Naruto states. Tsunade bites her nail with an angered look. Then that explains why that one-eye bastard was so confident that day, she states. I bet and he's been harassing you too, Naruto says, and Tsunade scoffs. I've become practically a figurehead. Danzo and his cronies have poisoned the village. Repealing Sensei's law was the start, Tsunade explains. How did my fellow rookies take it? Naruto asks. Tsunade folds her arms with a look up to the sky. Only Hinata and Sakura still honor your memory. Along with Shizune, Anko, Neko, Hana and Sume Inuzuka. The rest despise you, she explains. Konohamaru and his friends, Naruto asks, and Tsunade sighs. They were driven to hate you by Asuma. Kurenai and those crones, Tsunade replies. Naruto runs his fingers through his hair. I see. Then it makes this easier, he says, walking towards the railing. What easier? Tsunade asks. Naruto reaches into his right cargo pocket and hands her a small book. Read it. After I escaped Jiraiya, Kurama brought me to Uzushio, he says. Tsunade opens the book and starts to read. How did you know to go there? She asks. Apparently mom and dad left fragments of their souls imprinted on the seal to help me control Kurama's power, Naruto replies, shocking Tsunade. I was needless to say shocked and angry but got over it. I told them what happened and they were pissed. Then they went through my memories and they trained me in my mindscape until their chakra ran out. I learned everything they knew, Naruto states. Tsunade's eyes slowly widen as Naruto smirks. You're looking at not only the second coming to the Kyuubi no Yoko but the yellow flash, he says. Those stupid idiots, Tsunade starts but a shocked gasp escapes her lips and slips into a shout of rage. That fucking cripple. He and those two went behind Sensei's back and sold out Uzushio, Tsunade shouts. Danzo feared Uzushio's power, Naruto says, and Tsunade shuts the book. He's a xenophobic bastard, Tsunade snaps. Indeed, and judging by what you said. He maneuvering to finally take the hat from you, Naruto says. Then what do you propose we do? Tsunade states. Naruto slips a lollipop into his mouth with a smirk. Gather everyone you trust. I have a plan, he says and hands her a familiar tri-prong kunai. Use that when you gather everyone. I'll be there in a flash, Naruto says and vanishes in a white flash. Tsunade clutches the kunai and quickly turns on her heels to gather her only allies. 1 hour later, Tsunade sat at desk as everyone gathers into her office. What is this about, Tsunade-sama? Shizune says. Tsunade places the tri-prong kunai on the desk. I've learned certain things that have shaken me to the core and shaken my resolve in remaining Hokage, she states, shocking everyone. Tsunade-sama, are you serious? Anko shouts. Tsunade tosses the kunai into the ceiling and a white flash fills the room. Naruto lands with his hood on and a large scroll on his back, causing everyone to prepare to attack, and Hinata uses her Byakugan. Stand down, Tsunade shouts. However, Hinata gasps and her eyes widen. Naruto, she sputters, shocking everyone. Hinata. Naruto died, Sakura states. Naruto removes his hood with a tilt of his head. Hinata's eyes were always perceptive. Datbeo, he says. That's impossible. Jiraiya-sama said Naruto was captured and killed by the Akatsuki, Sume states. It wouldn't be impossible, Mom. Jiraiya-sama didn't return with a body, Hana says. Agreed, and his scent matches the boy but even more fox than before, Kuromaru comments, but Anko titters with a kunai. I can taste his sweet blood and tell ya for sure, Anko says. Naruto sighs with a look on his face. I'd rather you didn't, he says. Naruto. Sakura starts and Naruto turns, only to punch right in the stomach. Naruto's eyes bulge and he collapses to his knees as Sakura shakes her fist. Naru baka, she says, tears forming. I deserve that and I'll explain. Is this everyone? Naruto says, staggering to his feet. Yes. Anyone else could already be compromised, Tsunade states, stifling a laugh. What do you mean Tsunade-sama? Shizune asks. Everyone else has been poisoned by Danzo's propaganda against me as the Kyuubi Jinchuriki, or rather former, Naruto says. Everyone becomes sullen with saddened looks. What do you mean former? Hana asks. Naruto retells what he told Tsunade and reveals his fox features, causing the girls to squeal except Anko, Yugao and Tsume. Hey, like an alpha, the feral woman comments and Anko titters. S so fluffy, Hinata, Shizune and Sakura say, grabbing his tails. Hana coughs with a sigh but a blush on her cheeks. Anyway, why did you want all of us here? She asks. Naruto pulls his tails free with a shake and dispels them. Simple. You're all going to die, he says, and the room goes silent. What? Everyone shouts. Naruto raises his hands in surrender. What I mean is I'm going to fake your deaths, allowing all of you to escape. However, if you choose not to go, I'll erase your memories of these moments, he says. Why do we have to leave, Naruto? Hinata asks. Well, because sooner or later Danzo will finally make a move on Ba-chan to become Hokage, Naruto starts but sighs. Besides, haven't your father, fellow rookies, fellow jonin and villagers become cold towards to you all, he adds. He's right. The village has always had it out for me, but now with you dead, it's been shifting back to me, Anko comments. My Anbu team is starting to question my loyalty, Yugao says, removing her mask. Father even branded me, Hinata says, moving her bangs. Naruto clenches his fist. So what say you all, he says. My family is slowly moving me out of the pack. So I'm in, Hana says. I agree with my pup. Kiba has become more vocal to oust me as clan head and the elders are agreeing, Tsume states. Konoha has never liked me. So what the hell, Anko states. Neko stares at her mask but looks to Tsunade. I serve the Hokage and where she goes I will follow, she says. Hinata stares at Naruto with poking of fingers, and Naruto. I want to go with you, she says. Thank you all. Now do you have everything? We can't risk waiting. I'll have some clones to see the fallout. I know this is a lot to digest but we need to leave, Naruto says. Naruto makes 4 clones. Okay, hold hands, he says, grasping Tsunade's shoulder. Naruto raises a half-ram sign. Cover my scent and blow yourselves up, he says, and all 3 nod. The group vanishes in a white flash. Let's get to work, one says and the others nod. XXX. The night was quiet for village of Konoha but it was broken as the Hokage tower explodes. Anbu and shinobi rush to the tower to battle the blaze as civilians flee in terror. However, the blaze was strong and took hours to put out but over half the building burned. Danzo and his fellow elders arrive at the scene. What happened? Danzo says. The tower exploded in fireball. We believe Hokage-sama may have been inside, one Anbu named Wolf. Danzo grips his cane. I see. Keep searching, he says. Could Tsunade have been inside? Koharu states and Homura adjusts his glasses. This could be an opportunity, Danzo says. Morning soon came and the blaze was put out, forcing the council to meet at Anbu HQ. Do we know what happened? Shikaku asks. Preliminary reports said the explosion was instant, Inoichi says. Do we know who was there besides Hokage-sama? Shikaku states. Homura adjusts his glasses with a false concerned look. Personnel records show Shizune Kato, Tsume and Hana Inuzuka with their Nin-ken. Anko Mitarashi, Neko, Sakura Haruno and Hinata Hyuga. He reports. Ha, good riddance. They're demon lovers, especially my niece, Akika Haruno comments, flicking her strawberry blonde hair. Be that as it may. We have lost 3 Hokage in 16 years. We need long-term stability or the other nations will prey upon us, Hiyashi states, not concerned about his daughter. Then I nominate Danzo as Rokudaime, Homura states, and the council murmurs. I second the nomination, Koharu adds. The council slowly murmur again but raise their hands in agreement. Then I accept your nomination as Rokudaime, Danzo states. I'll contact Daimyo-sama with our decision and announce at the village, Homura states, and the council trickles out, leaving the three elders. If we knew who committed this act, I'd thank them, Koharu comments. I would not. The scroll of sealing was in the tower. All that knowledge lost, Danzo states and grips his cane, contact Orochimaru. It's time the Uchiha and wayward Sannin to come home, he adds, and both nod. Uzushio ruins. Naruto and his cohorts appear among the ruins, and all of them were looking queasy from the trip. Tsunade was the first to recover and first to see the ruins of grandmother's clan, the source of the Third Shinobi War, she says. Indeed, 3 whole villages. No 4 villages to topple one small country, Naruto says. 4. Sum questions and Tsunade sighs. Danzo. Orochimaru and Jiraiya sold out the Uzumaki to Iwa. Kumo and Kiri. Tsunade replies, shocking the all. She's right. I found a journal in the ruins. Danzo contacted the 3 Kage and had Jiraiya give them the tools to bypass the seals on the island, and the rest is history, Naruto states. Did the Sandaime know? Sakura asks, but Naruto shakes his head. Gigi had no idea that his former teammate and 2 of his students betrayed him until after the deed was done and the Uzumaki scattered to the winds, Naruto replies. The group grows quiet and sullen as Naruto leads them through the ruins. Follow me. I found a bunker to bed down. We'll head out tomorrow, he says, but pops his forehead. Shit, I forgot. I have proposal for all of you, Naruto adds. What proposal, Naruto? Tsunade asks. Naruto shifts the large scroll. I want to make you pseudo Biju, he states, shocking them. What? How? They shout. Naruto gives them a foxy grin. Pretty much. I'll fuse my chakra to yours. You'll have power like mine, but the number of tails you gain is dependent on your reserves. It's pretty much what Kurama did for but no loss of life, he explains. You don't have to if you don't want to. You'd pretty be giving up your humanity. Think about it tonight, Naruto adds, and they follow him to the bunker in thought. Gaki, what's that big scroll? Anko asks, and Naruto glances back. The sacred scroll. I wasn't gonna let them keep it, Naruto replies. Take any room you want. We'll talk in the morning, Naruto says, heading to his room. The group picks their rooms but all meet in Tsunade's room. So what do you think? She asks. It's hard to say. The pup essentially wants to make a pseudo Biju for reasons we don't know, or how he became the Kyuubi. Sum starts. I trust Naruto-kun. He came back to help us, Hinata states. Shizune sighs and pets Taunton. If we knew his plan, we could better decide, she says, and Taunton oinks. He may want revenge on Konoha, Hana states, but Anko scoffs. Can you blame him? The village has done everything to bring him down. His supposed friends betrayed him for flippant reasons. Hell, that bastard Iruka was ordered to befriend him, she says. How do you know that? Sakura questions, and Anko scowls. He tried to sleep with me. He got drunk and blurted it out, Anko replies. Anyway, tomorrow. We'll ask him and go from there, Tsunade states. XXX. Naruto drops the large scroll next to the chair and tosses his coat on it. The new Kyuubi plops on his cot with a sigh and pulls off his glove to reveal a sun mark on his hand. Hagoromo Gigi. I got some of my precious people out except Iruka-sensei, Naruto thought, but his ears twitch and growl escapes his mouth. This causes a white blur to bolt out from under the cot. Naruto blinks and calms down. Sorry, Haru, he says, as a small white fox jumps onto him. Haru yips and Naruto scratches her ear, causing her to purr as his mind drifts. Flashback. Naruto struggles and stumbles to stay standing and run as multiple red seals glow on his body, his face contorted in rage, pain and sadness. Behind Naruto was his sensei, pseudo-grandfather, and his trusted friend but now a traitor. Enough running, Naruto. It's time you take your proper place as Konoha's weapon, Jiraiya states. Inside the seal, the Kyuubi no Yoko was ramming his head into the gate. I can't let the boy be their pet. I refuse to be subjugated again, he roars. Kurama halts and looks down at the water to his reflection. Old man. I guess you were right. A truly innocent will need me, he thought, and looks at the gate with resolution. Naruto. I'll save you, but you better get revenge on Madara for me in return, Kurama shouts. Naruto collapses to his knees but suddenly lurches up with a burst of red chakra, shocking Jiraiya. As the Kyuubi breaking free, Jiraiya shouts. Naruto slowly rises to his feet and slowly turns with glowing red eyes. Know this, Toad. Konoha will not have this boy. You and that one-eye man will rue this day. Because you have created your destroyer, Kurama declares, vanishing with inhuman speed. Flashback end. Naruto opens his slitted blue eyes. You were right, Kurama. Konoha has created their own destroyer. Oh, the irony, he thought, drifting off to sleep. The next day, Naruto heads to the surface for a light workout but was stopped by Tsunade and the group. Have you made up your minds? He asks. Naruto, we would like to hear your intentions. Before we make our choices, Tsunade says, and Naruto slowly nods. Sure, follow me, Naruto says, leading them to a large chamber. Well, my intentions are a series of objectives, but to learn it, I need to explain several things, Naruto says and turns to face them. You've more or less heard of the Sage of Six Paths, he says, and all of them nod. Well, it starts with him. His name was Hagoromo Otsutsuki, but it truly starts with his mother Kagaya, the Usagi no Megami. She was the manifestation of a sacred tree known as the Shinju. To be its guardian, but she met a man named Tenji and fell in love with him. She also gained a friend named Aino. However, as time passed, Tenji began to fear Kagaya's power and let others poison his mind against her. She and Aino were forced to seek refuge from the Shinju. Naruto starts and pauses for a moment. Aino learned Kagaya was pregnant and tried to stop Tenji but died in the process. In her grief, Kagaya ate the fruit of the Shinju and became the first user of chakra, Naruto adds, shocking them. Kagaya was driven mad by the power and slaughtered Tenji and his company conspirators. Time passed and she had two sons, Hagoromo and Hamura, but eventually the brothers turned against Kagaya for her actions in enslaving the world. Hagoromo possessed the Sharingan and eventually the Rinnegan, Naruto states. He possessed two of the three of the legendary dojutsu, Neko or Yugao, Azuki states, and Naruto nods. How do you know this? Hana asks, and Naruto removes his glove, revealing the sun mark on his hand. When Kurama used a forbidden jutsu exclusive to the Biju he dubbed Sosei. I technically died and met Hagoromo Jiji, who told me the story. So to cut down on a long-winded explanation, Hagoromo had two sons, Indra, progenitor of the Uchiha, and Ashura, progenitor of the Senju and Uzumaki. Indra believed in power and Ashura believed bonds were important. Remind you of someone, Ba-chan, Naruto states. My grandfather. He always preached our bonds make us strong, Tsunade says, and Naruto nods. Yep. Indra and Ashura both refused to let their rivalry end. Indra hated Ashura for taking over their clan after Hagoromo's passing. Ashura refused to let his brother's madness spread. So their souls reincarnated over the years. One major set were Madara Uchiha and Hashirama Senju. The current incarnation of Indra and Ashura is myself and Sasuke, Naruto says, shocking all of them again. This is seriously fucking wild, Anko comments. Naruto folds his arms and stares at his hand. No kidding. Now my objectives are simple. Stop the Akatsuki. Kill Black Zetsu to prevent Kagaya's rebirth. Take the six-path power from Sasuke to end Indra's legacy. This last one is personal one. Destroy Konoha, he says. So you do want revenge on Konoha, Shizune states, but Naruto shakes his head. Not Konoha as a whole. Just Danzo and all who follow him, Naruto replies and looks them in the eye. So you will undergo the transformation to help me, he asks. I will, Naruto, Hinata blurts. Naruto smiles warmly with a nod. Thank you, Hinata. I'm sorry I didn't realize your feelings for me sooner, he says, shocking Hinata. So you finally realized it, huh? And I'll take the change, Sakura says, and Naruto rubs his head. Yeah, merging with Kurama helped, Naruto says. I'll help you, Naruto. Konoha has taken so much for me. It's high time they pay me back, Tsunade states. Hana and I will opt out. It could affect our dynamic with our Nin-Ken, but we will help you, Tsume says, and Naruto nods. That's fine. I can't force you to make this choice and your help is appreciated, Naruto says. If this change lets me kill Orochimaru, I'm in, Anko says. Shizune nay. Neko nay, Naruto asks. I will help you, Naruto-kun, but decline the Sosei, Yugao comments, and Naruto nods, scratching his ear. I'll help you too, Naruto. I am your big sister and I need to help my little brother, Shizune says, and several yips echo. Naruto looks back and Haru was trotting up. Morning, Haru, he says, picking her up. Oh, this Haru. I found her on the island. She is actually the first to receive my chakra. Giving her 2 tails, Naruto says, and Haru climbs onto his head. Okay, everyone form a circle in the center, Naruto says, and the group complies, as Hana, Tsume, Yugao, Kuromaru and the triplets stand next to him. 5 seal-less clones pop around Naruto and stand behind each of them. Alright, these clones are pumped full of my Biju and 6-path chakra. They will transfer it your own and facilitate the change. Don't fight it, just let it happen, he says, as the clones place their hands on each of their backs. Ready? Naruto says, and all of them nod. The clones bring forth their chakra as their hands glow a bright red, before 5 small domes of energy engulf the 5 of them. Hana, Yugao and Tsume's eyes widen at the amount of oppressive chakra erupts, but Naruto stands in front of them to channel his own, which was bright and warm. 5 minutes pass as the domes die down, revealing them changed but reborn. Hinata was the first to move with 7 lavender tails swishing behind her. Her form was now of an adult with her hair now to her waist. This is too weird, Sakura says, seeing her 7 pink tails with black tips and like Hinata more mature. Finally they're big, Sakura thought, seeing her larger breasts. Tsunade gets to her feet with 8 blonde tails with black tips, but her form now in her early 20s. Shizune staggers to her feet with 6 black with white tip tails, but she gasps as her breasts were much larger than before, while Anko has 6 purple tails. So how do you all feel? Naruto says. Each of them test their bodies, hell of a lot stronger, and that fucking mark is gone, Anko shouts. Hinata and Sakura look in her early 20s, Shizune says. It seems to push her body to peak condition like me, Naruto says. So what now, Naruto? Tsunade says, her new ears twitching. Naruto pulls Haru off his head. We pack up and head to my base, but before we go, I want you to get used to your new bodies. You are immensely stronger than before, he explains. How do we make our tails and ears go away? Sakura asks, and Naruto smirks. Just think about it, Naruto says, and they comply, returning to normal. Where's your base, Naruto? Hinata asks, and Naruto smiles. Snow country, or rather spring country, Naruto says. Naruto sits on the roof of the cage tower with his legs crossed and Haru in his lap. This tower indeed resembles the one in Konoha, he thought. It has been a month since he brought Tsunade and the others to Uzushio, turning them into pseudo-fox Biju. Naruto sent a clone to Spring and informed Koyuki that he would delay his return and properly train the others. However, something unexpected or expected in Naruto's case came about as Tsunade, Anko, Shizune, Sakura and Hinata were unconsciously releasing pheromones. Tsume and Hana were the first to notice and confronted him about it, to which he explained that the 5 of them would experience animal urges such as wanting to mate and lay claim to the alpha. Tsume knew what Naruto meant and agreed to teach the others to control their urges. Needless to say, Hinata and the others were shocked at this revelation and spent the next week avoiding him, but eventually came around. The next 3 weeks Naruto taught them the Kage Bunshin, allowing them to shape up their flaws and strengthen their core skills. Naruto showed them a treasure trove of weapons, jutsu and knowledge for them to learn, allowing them to expand their respective skill sets. Ready to go home Haru, Naruto muses, rubbing her ear and Haru yips. Naruto rises to his feet and vanishing with a swirl of wind, reappearing outside the village. Tsunade and other were mediating but their fox ears twitch at every sound. Time for us to leave, Tsunade asks. Yeah, I've been gone too long. Koyuki will be mad, Naruto says. Everyone gets to their feet. I am so taking a long and hot shower, Sakura says. Same with me and some dango, Anko comments. Naruto hands Haru to Hinata and everyone joins hands, before they vanish in a huge white flash. Spring Country. Naruto and his group appear in the courtyard of a large compound. Welcome to my home, he says. Everyone looks around in shock at the beautiful scenery and large home. It has several training areas. A dojo and outdoor bath, Naruto says, letting Haru down to run around. I need to report in. The house is yours. Feel free to explore, Naruto says and vanishes in a flash. Anko, Sakura, Yugao, Hana and Tsume quickly rush off towards to the outdoor bath as Tsunade, Shizune and Hinata start to explore. This place doesn't look cheap, Tsunade comments, but it has a Spartan feel. The three continue to explore, finding 10 bedrooms and 5 bathrooms also, a fully stocked kitchen and a room full of weapons. However, one weapon stood for its large size. It was an incredibly large halberd with a large double-edged sword. Its pommel has a large crescent moon design and white wrapping to the blade. Kami. That is a huge weapon, Tsunade comments. The three continue to explore but eventually make it to the outdoor bath. About time, Anko chirps. We wanted to see the place, Shizune says, stepping into the water. Tsunade and Hinata follow but the younger hides her breasts and Anko grins. I bet Naruto gonna love riding those titties, she says and Hinata eeps. Or Tsunade-sama's, Anko adds and Tsunade chuckles. Think so, or is it the hormones talking, Tsunade comments. Sakura runs her towel over her cheek. I can understand Hinata being attracted to Naruto, but all of us, she says. Since Naruto made you into pseudo-foxes. He is the alpha and you want him to mate with you. We taught you to control the urges on Uzushio, but it's still there until you actually have with him and mark him our alpha, Tsume comments, sipping some sake. To be honest, I was attracted to the little brat. He was so cute and I so wanted to corrupt him, Anko muses. His whiskers are cute, Sakura comments. Hinata submerges herself with red cheeks. I want to make love with Naruto but I am so embarrassed, she whispers. Then do it, Hinata. You loved him first. So go for it. We can wait. Just tell us how big he is, Anko says and Hinata blushes brightly with steam rising from her ears. Break. Meanwhile, Naruto was standing in the study as Koyuki sat at her desk. Sorry for taking too long to return, he says. It's alright, Naruto-kun. How are the others? Koyuki says. She has long black hair with bangs that sweep on each side of her face and violet blue eyes, wearing a green blouse and a gray skirt with brown shoes. They're adjusting well but they'll need to keep a low profile for now, Naruto explains and cups his chin. I could make them my ghosts like you are. That way they can teach the next generation, Koyuki states. Naruto softly smiles with a glance outside. So you are going through with your goal of establishing a shinobi village, he says. Koyuki rises from her seat and makes her way to the balcony. Yes, but not like the other nations. Shinobi loyal to me and help the people from the shadows. I believe they can lay a proper foundation for it, she says. Naruto places his hand on her shoulder. Then I will do everything in my power to see it come to fruition. Datbeo, he says and Koyuki laughs. Though you have changed so much. That side of you will never die, Koyuki says. Thank you, Koyuki. By your leave then, Naruto says and excuses himself. Naruto makes his way back to his compound but deep in thought, Kurama. I wish you were here. I need help with this problem or 5 problems rather, he thought. He kept walking but halted in his tracks and pales. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, he thought, creating 5 clones. We need food and sake. 3 of you load up. You 2 buy basic clothes, Naruto says, and the 5 salute, leaping off. Naruto continues through town as people greet him. Hello Ghost-sama. Hello Menma-sama, several greet. Here Ghost Dono, a older woman says, tossing him an apple. Naruto pulls down his mask to reveal his face under a henge. Thanks Kaide, he says, continuing his walk. Even if I have to wear a henge to hide my whiskers. This is what I've wanted to have since I was a child. People treating me fairly and not as some demon incarnate, Naruto thought. Naruto reaches his compound as the clones arrive with a multitude of bags, before opening the gate. He could sense they were grouped in the living room as finishes off his apple. I'll take the clothes. You all get started on dinner, he says, opening the front door. Naruto slips off his boots and makes his way to the living room, finding them wearing his robes. Sorry about that, I have some simple clothes until you can go shop for new clothes, Naruto says, dropping the bags. Naruto quickly turns around as they strip off their robes to root through the bags. You know, you can watch Gaki, Anko chirps and Naruto scratches his head. Sorry, I am a gentleman unlike that pervert, Naruto says, with a slight edge to his voice. Don't mention that bastard. He always was sniffing around me after he came back to Konoha, Tsunade says, slipping on some sweats and a t-shirt. Naruto rubs his forehead and slips a lollipop in his mouth. They're only temporary. You can get your own clothes tomorrow, he says. Naruto. We're decent, Hinata says, and Naruto turns around. So how are you all feeling? Concerning your urges. I know it's something I neglected to mention before the change, Naruto says, sitting in a chair. The room goes quiet as Hinata was blushing brightly with her head down. We can handle it, Naruto, but deep down, I want you to mount me and make me yours, Tsunade comments. Same here, Gaki. I want you to destroy me for other men, Anko says, with a lick of her lips. How did you deal with your urges, Naruto-kun? Shizune asks. Naruto points to the lollipop in his mouth. I on lollipops. However, when I was on the island, I used a Kage Bunshin and it hanged using my Y jutsu, he starts and Anko laughs. So you fucked yourself, Anko laughs, followed by Sum. Yeah, and it worked for about 3 months. So I decided to return to the mainland. I went to a brothel in the capital and spent a week there. The matron named Yumi taught me how to properly please a woman and curb my urges, Naruto explains. Properly please a woman? Sakura queries. Naruto slowly nods and crosses his legs. She said I was natural at cunningless, he says, shocking all of them. I'm sold, Anko chirps. Naruto rubs his head sheepishly with a blush on his cheeks. After that, I was able to control my urges and went back to my training, but I would flash back for the occasional romp, he explains. Putting that aside for now, their feelings for you are a byproduct of their transformations. So you won't force them to be with you, as Sum told us earlier, Yugao comments. No, I won't. Something so despicable. I'll admit I am attracted to them, but I refuse to force them into something. All you have stood by me when everyone else tossed me aside. To me you are my precious people, Naruto states, causing all of them to smile. Okay, let's put this aside for real. How are you going to explain us to the people of spring? To the world we are dead, Tsunade states. Simple. You're going to become ghosts like me. Outside of Koyuki, I am Menma, the ghost of Flash, or the ghost of spring. You'll have to change your appearance like Ba-chan does with her special henge, Naruto states. Gaki. You're the fucking ghost. S-rank threat with a flea on-site order, Anko shouts and Naruto nods, shocking them. Ghost. Sakura says. After a year of training on Uzushio, I needed experience, but first I went to meet with the other Jinchuriki and warn them of the Akatsuki and a possible Konoha threat to replace me, Naruto starts. Why? Sakura says and Naruto sighs. Danzo wants me to be a weapon. A glorified attack dog. I wouldn't put it past him to try and steal another Jinchuriki for that purpose, Naruto replies. First, I met the Nibi Jinchuriki. Yugito ni outside of Kumo by chance. Matabi and Kurama were old friends, allowing Yugito to trust me. The other Jinchuriki Darui. The right hand of the Raikage doesn't leave Kumogakure, but she agreed to pass it on. I even gave her one of my kunai for just in case, Naruto states. In case the Akatsuki attacked, Shizune states and Naruto nods. Along the way to Iwa, I encountered a missing nin named Hirako and his 3 followers, Naruto says and Tsunade gasps. Did you say Hirako? Tsunade says and he nods. Who's Hirako Tsunade-sama? Shizune asks. Tsunade sighs sadly. He was a friend growing up, but he had no special skills. So he created a jutsu to steal Kekai Genkai from others. Sensei sent us to deal him, but he escaped with his research, she explains. He perfected it. He could use the swift storm, dark and steel releases. He could absorb chakra and created several strange animals. It was a tough battle to test my skills, but Hirako and his followers fell. Before he died, he rambled about perfection and comrades. He even saw me a ghost. So I adopted it, after I destroyed his research and gave him a proper shinobi burial. I headed to Iwa, but I was met with apprehension. Both didn't trust me and their Biju blamed me for Kurama's death. I told them about the Akatsuki and promptly left, Naruto explains, his face sullen. Kurama's death has hit you hard, Naruto? Hinata asks and Naruto nods. Yeah, he gave his life to save mine, Naruto says and rubs his head. Anyway, after Iwa, I headed to Taki to meet with the Nanabi, but I couldn't find them. Taki is very weary of outsiders. So I begrudgingly headed for Suna to see Gaara. He's didn't believe me at first, but I told him something only the 2 of us know. We caught up and I fixed his seal and got rid of the madness-consuming Shukaku. Gaara caught me up on Konoha's current events and the repeal of Jiji's law, Naruto says and Tsunade looks down. I'll say it was clever on Danzo's part to have the law repealed, and it explains why everyone turned on me. Bearing current company in the Ichiraku family, Naruto says, chewing on his lollipop stem. How is that clever? Shizune says. Danzo knows I am still alive somewhere. So to make sure I had no safe haven to return to, he poisoned Konoha with propaganda aimed to paint me as Kurama in human skin. Which most of the older generation thought, Naruto explains. If you are told a lie for 3 straight years, you start to believe it, and anyone who doesn't is a demon lover and meant to be shunned despite their status, Naruto adds. All of you swam against the tide of hate. Well, after parting ways with Gaara, I headed for the land of water but turned up nothing. The Sanbi was dead and set to reform in a few months from now. The Jinchuriki of the Rokubi is a recluse and hasn't been since the civil war started and ended, Naruto explains, but his face becomes serious. I decided then I needed a place to be a base of operations. Uzushio was out, but I knew a place. Luckily I made here before it was destroyed, he adds. Destroyed, Sakura states. Naruto puts the stem of lollipop into the wrapper. The land of Sky attacked here for their technology as a test run to enact their revenge on the 5 great nations. Their leader was a man named Shino. He and Orochimaru were old buddies. He commanded a force of 800 strong with a flying city. Against samurai and a few squads of shinobi, he says and pauses, but all of them see the dark look in his eyes. I made 100 clones of various styles and sent them into the city. While I headed for the island, the Sky Shinobi and civilians of Spring witnessed the birth of the Shiro Senko. Just as Iwa witnessed my father. Once I entered the island, I encountered more Sky Ninja en route to the center, where I found Shino trying to revive a creature called the Ribi. It feeds on negative emotions and Shino slaughtered dozens to feed it. He even allowed the Ribi to possess his body, Naruto explains. A tough battle, Tsume asks and Naruto nods. Yeah, the Ribi thrives on negative emotions and produces dark chakra, but like normal chakra it needs control. A couple Rasengan and a Bijudama later, It was destroyed and the fortress sank below the depths. Once I made it to the mainland. The people were calling me the ghost of spring or phantom hero. Luckily none of the clones used the Hiraishin, Naruto replies. You know the Hiraishin too, Tsume adds and Naruto smiles, a chain emerges from his palm. I learned everything my parents know. Once things started to settle down. I met with Koyuki and she thanked me but she was shocked to find who I really was. She first slapped me and then hugged me. I told her what happened and she agreed to make me her personal shinobi or her ghost, Naruto states. How did it get out what you did? Some people were saying the yellow flash's ghost had returned hence the flea on sight, Yugao says. Several villages were keeping close eyes on the land of sky. One of which was Iwa. Like I said, I was glad the clones didn't use the Hiraishin or Rasengan. They used Zangetsu and the Flash Step. Which is an advanced Shunshin I created on Uzushio, Naruto says and rolls up his sleeve, revealing a whirlpool tattoo. He channels some chakra and a sword appears within a red sheath. Rising from his seat Naruto pulls the dado free and reveals a black blade. Its crossguard is shaped like a whirlpool with the hilt wrapped in red and black. I found it in the vault. It belonged to the previous Uzukage along with another weapon, Naruto explains, putting Zangetsu back into its seal. Yo boss. Dinner is ready, a clone says and dispels. Welp. Let's eat. We can talk later, Naruto says and everyone follows him. Konoha. Danzo stares at the Hokage hat on his desk, his lifetime ambition finally fulfilled and the new Rokudaime looks to his two guests. The first being Orochimaru and the other being Sasuke Uchiha, Kukuku. Quite the sight Hokage-sama, Orochimaru says. Indeed. Starting today both of you are pardoned of your crimes and reinstated into Konoha's forces as a Jonin. Otogakure will be a protectorate under Konoha, Danzo says and Orochimaru grins. Of course Hokage-sama. The loss of Tsunade and a clan heir is a large blow but not a great one, Orochimaru states. Orochimaru the Dobi is dead, Sasuke comments, his arms folded. Danzo looks to the young Uchiha, yes for nearly 3 years now but unofficially the Jinchuriki could be still alive according Jiraiya, he says but Sasuke ignores him. Kukuku Naruto-kun has always had the devil's luck. Sasuke-kun will find him in short order with his Taka, Orochimaru says and Danzo nods. Sasuke scoffs and heads off to train or brood, leaving the older men. Has he awakened the Mangekyo? Danzo says and Orochimaru grins wide. I had him befriend a girl named Karen and eventually court feelings for her. Before he killed her and awakened his true eyes. Sasuke-kun is so ruthless now. Kukuku, Orochimaru says. Good I want him as strong possible. Should the Jinchuriki return, I want it brought to heel, Danzo says. Of course Hokage-sama but I am curious have you heard about the ghost of spring or ghost of the flash, Orochimaru asks. This ghost is ruthlessly efficient. I'm sending a correspondence to Spring in an attempt to convince him to join Konoha, Danzo says. Kukuku. I wouldn't mind possessing this ghost's body. They say his speed rivals Minato, Orochimaru says and Danzo scoffs. Once the correspondence is returned, I will have Jiraiya make his way to Spring and meet with Ghost. Once Ghost comes here, my Sharingan will make them loyal to Konoha, Danzo states, as the snake titters. Break. Naruto steps out into his garden with a look up at the night sky, a cigarette in his mouth this time. He runs his fingers through his hair with a sigh, Hamura Jiji. Should I have her meet you? He muses. Who does Hamura-san need to meet? A soft voice says. Naruto glances and he sees Hinata stepping into the garden. You, he says, shocking her. Me. Hinata states and Naruto nods. Hamura Jiji is the progenitor of the Hyuga clan. I met him during the time I met Hagoromo Jiji. After the battle with Kagaya. Hamura went to the moon to watch over her, Naruto explains. Why does he wish to meet with me? Hinata says but Naruto shakes his head. I don't know. He didn't reveal it to me, Naruto says but sighs. Follow me, Naruto says and Hinata follows him into the dojo. The pair take a seat on the floor and Naruto takes her hands, looking into her lavender eyes. First I wanna say, I'm sorry for not noticing your feelings for me. I was busy pining over Sakura, Naruto says, but Hinata touches his mouth, with a shake of her head. It's alright, Naruto. I was so painfully shy and I always gave up. I made so many mistakes, but you showed me the right path. Hinata starts and closes her eyes. I always chased after you. I so desperately wanted to catch up to you. I always wanted to walk by your side. Fight by your side, Hinata continues. Your smile and your strength saved me. When they announced that you had died, I was devastated, but seeing you here, I can finally say that I love you, Naruto. Now and always, Hinata adds. Naruto's eyes widen and start to flicker, but a soft smile forms. Thank you, Hinata, he says and touches their foreheads. Hinata gasps as she's standing next to Naruto outside a large open cage. Where are we? She asks. My mindscape, Naruto says. A presence makes itself known and the pair to an old man with long white hair. Is this her, Naruto? He says. Yes, Hamura Jiji. This is Hinata Hyuga, Naruto says. Hamura approaches Hinata and looks into her Byakugan princess. Please save the world my brother created, he says, placing his hand on her chest. Hinata suddenly feels a rush of chakra as an aura of purple chakra surrounds her, causing her to open her eyes in the real world. How do you feel? Naruto asks. Hinata gets to feet and closes her hands. I feel stronger, she says. That's good. I'll help you with it, Naruto says. Hinata starts to poke her fingers with a deep blush. Thank you, Naruto, but you wanna. She starts, her eyes spinning like whirlpools. Wanna what? Naruto says, moving closer and reaching out. Hinata looks up with a bashful look. I wanna have. She shouts and Naruto's eyes widen. You wanna have. Hinata, is this your instincts telling to do this or is this real? Naruto says and Hinata gasps but grasps his chest. No. I want you to. Make love to me, Naruto, Hinata says. Warning. Naruto stares into Hinata's lavender orbs as she gazes into his sapphire jewels. Slowly she grasps his hands and leans in to softly kiss him. The kisses start chaste and sensual, but Naruto licks Hinata's lower lip for access. Parting her lips, Naruto's tongue slips to fight her for dominance. The pair part with a trail of saliva from the mouth and soft gasps, their eyes flickering in want. Naruto grasps the bottom of Hinata's shirt and slowly lifts it off, but the former heiress covers her chest in embarrassment as she lays back. You don't have to hide them from me, Naruto coos, taking her hands away. The former Jinchuriki grasps her right in awe and elicits a tiny moan from Hinata. Gaining a foxy grin, he gropes her more and leans down to trail kisses from her jawline to her neck. Hinata's eyes are half-lidded as Naruto marks her breasts with soft kisses and his left tweaking her stiffening nipples. NRGH. Naruto, she whispers. Naruto shifts to lay half off of Hinata as his right hand tickles her belly, moving further south to her panties. Yugu, Hinata cries, as Naruto right hand rubs her sacred area. Naruto keeps his hand over her panties and rubs her amenko as he starts to lightly on her nipple. Hinata writhes from Naruto's ministration and could feel this heat building in her stomach. Her breathing became heavy as more and more of the feeling builds. Hinata's eyes widen and her back arches, a drawn-out moan escapes mouth. Naruto felt her panties moisten and slips his hand inside but pulls them out with a glistening liquid on his fingers. You taste good, Hinata-chan, Naruto coos, after ing on his fingers. Naruto moves to spread open her legs, before pulling his throbbing member from his box briefs. Hinata looks down but gasps and unconsciously licks her lips. I'm ready, Naruto, she coos, shyly. Naruto smirks and moves her soaked panties, revealing her trimmed snatch and slowly guides his member into her lower lips. Hinata groans and grips the pillows behind her as Naruto slowly pushes inside her. Goo. Phew. Enarge. She sputters out. Naruto fully sheathes himself inside Hinata and leans down to captures her lips once more, but this Hinata was more forceful. I'm going move now Hinata, Naruto says, between kisses. He starts slowly and to get her used to his thrusts as heavy panting fills the room but slowly Hinata starts to move her hips to his, her fox ears suddenly emerging and her nails sharpen. Hinata's heavy breathing become loud moans as she pulls Naruto into the crook her neck, while their free hands found each other and interlock. This is a dream. Nah. Come true. Enarge. I am making love with Naruto. Ah. Hinata cries. Naruto varies the speed of his thrusts as Hinata claws at his back, another release approaching for her. Suddenly Hinata bites Naruto on the shoulder as her orgasm erupts. Ikuu, she cries. Naruto growls as his fox ears come to bear and he speed up more. Hinata. I'm going cum, he grunts. Inside Naruto-kun. Onagai. Hinata cries and Naruto lurches forward, filling Hinata to the brim with his seed. Naruto collapses onto Hinata with a warm look on his face. I love you Hinata, he whispers. Hinata grasps his face with a equally warm look. I love you too Naruto. Chew, she says, kissing him again and continuing for another 2 hours. End. Next day, Naruto and company under henges were making their way to get new clothes for them and finally meet with Koyuki. Hinata was next to him and holding his gloved hand as the others were giving him sly looks, namely Tsunade, Anko, Yugao, Sum and Hana. So the place we're going to makes clothes of an unconventional sense but they are battle ready and highly resistant, Naruto states. He was wearing black cargo pants with combat boots, his half mask over his face and a white oriental shirt with black sleeves. The group reaches a fairly nondescript store. This is it, Anko says, incredulously. It is, Naruto says and opens the door. Oi Dojima-san. I have customers, he shouts. Rapid footsteps occur as an effeminate man rushes towards him. Menma-kun, he shouts. Dojima has a slender body with short and slicked back cyan hair with blue eyes. Welcome to my lair. Please follow me, he says, dressed in a kimono. The group carefully follows them and Dojima leads them downstairs. Now don't let their looks fool you. My art is battle tested and very resistance. Menma-kun can attest to that, he says, sliding open a set of the doors. The group gasps as the room was filled with mannequins modeling various types of clothes. See anything you let me know. They are made with special fabric and will adjust automatically to your body type, Dojima says. For real. That's convenient, Anko says. Naruto takes a seat on a sofa and pulls a book from his cargoes. Dojima put everything on my tab, he says and Dojima rubs his hands together. Of course, Dojima says. Hinata and the others start to browse the various outfits as Naruto reads. Any preferences, Dojima says. This seems versatile. I mainly use taijutsu. This outfit seems to fit, Hinata says. It was a slim sleeve, light lavender kimono blouse with detached sleeves but mesh linking them together, a dark purple obi, navy shorts and footed tights with ankle boots, having lavender fur around the top. Interesting choice. I also recommend this coat as well, Dojima says and points to a coat. It is a hip-length white coat with lavender fur on the cuffs and collar. That would be nice, Hinata says, taking the clothes into the changing room. This fits me perfectly, Sakura says. A form-fitting, sleeveless maroon kipao dress with black capri pants, calf-length kunoichi boots and black arm sleeves that secure at the middle finger. I'll take this, Anko chirps, pointing to a short gray skirt and a gray buttonless jacket, black hat, black bra, and long black boots. I'll add a body suit. So I won't show too much skin, Anko adds, taking the clothes. Tsunade chooses a pair of black cargos with red trim, with a lavender suit vest and a black tie, completing the outfit with a black button-up overcoat and white gloves. Sum goes revealing with a black leotard and white chaps, knee-length boots with arm-length, fingerless gloves. Ha ha ha, I'll show all the skin I want, Sum says. Hana goes opposite with a black button vest with coattails and a single silver button on the front. Underneath this is a white, sleeveless, high-necked, crop undershirt and white shorts. She grabs a pair of black low-heeled boots and full stockings with a color gradation of black to purple at her ankles and purple arm warmers. Shizune goes the most conservative with a black hakama with a white kimono blouse. A black shrug with a long left sleeve and a short right sleeve, black arm warmers that extend to her middle fingers and a purple band around the top. Yugao chooses an outfit similar to her Anbu uniform, but the top is a dark purple kimono blouse and no vest, with heeled combat boots. What do you think, Naruto-kun? Shizune asks. Naruto looks up from his book to look over their choices. I like them, he says. Menma-kun. I have some weapons and accessories upstairs, Dojima says. That's fine. Now we can head to Koyuki-sama, Naruto comments, as they excuse themselves. You weren't kidding about the odd fashion sense, Enko comments, as they left the store. It's not too bad. Dojima was a former shinobi here in spring, but with Dodo's takeover, he left and traveled. Learning about clothes instead of war, Naruto comments, as they take to the roofs to cover more ground. The oddly dressed group arrive at the palace and are led to Koyuki's study, Menma Dono. Koyuki-sama is most displeased, a guard says. In what regard? Naruto asks and the guard grabs the door handle. I am not sure, but she received a delivery, the guard notes, opening the door. Koyuki sits at her desk as the group enter and waits for the guard to leave. You can drop your henges, she says, and the group complies. Thank you for helping us, Koyuki-sama, Tsunade states, as they bow. Koyuki raises her hand with a smile. It's an honor for me. You all didn't abandon Naruto-kun in his time of need and kept up his memory, she starts and sighs, despite Konoha's bias of him, she adds. Naruto is a hero as his father wanted him to be, Tsume says, and Koyuki nods. I'm curious, what was the delivery that has you upset? Naruto asks and Koyuki frowns, handing him a missive. It was delivered by a toad from Konoha, Koyuki says, and the room goes quiet. Naruto reads through the missive and tosses it back on the desk. So they wish to meet with the ghost of spring, he says. Should I decline? Koyuki asks, but Naruto shakes his head. No. Just tell them. I am not in country right now, Naruto replies. Should that be a good idea? Tsunade asks and Naruto smiles, with a fox-like grin. Anyway, let's focus on the current events. Now, as Naruto did or didn't explain. I would like you all to join Spring, Koyuki states. That is all well and good, but technically we're all dead in eyes of the world, Enko comments and Naruto snorts. Though true. You would be doing as I do. You can wear a mask or special henge like Tsunade. You'll be ghosts or phantoms that answer only to Koyuki, Naruto explains. I even have code names to further insulate you. Tsunade will be Mercy. Shizune will be Sen for Senbon. Sakura will be Cherry. Enko will be Black Mamba. Tsume will be Widowmaker. Hana will be Wolf. Yugao will be Moon and Hinata will be Cinnamon, Naruto adds. I like that. Ha ha ha. Tsume says, followed by Enko. Naruto chuckles, but suddenly his body goes rigid and a scowl forms. One of my seal activated, he says, rolling up his right sleeve. Akatsuki, Tsunade says, and Naruto slowly nods. Possible or simply an accident, Naruto says, channeling his chakra to another seal. A long coat appears from the seal and Naruto slips it on. It was white with blue trim and a beaked hood. Hopefully this is nothing, but I've learned to hope for the best and prepare for the worst, Naruto says, pulling up his hood and it obscures his face. Do you want any of us to go with you? Hinata asks. Stand by for now. I'll send a clone if I need any help, Naruto says and hold a ram sign, before vanishing in a white flash. Sunagaker. Naruto appears in office with Sai. What the situation? Tamari. He says, seeing the blonde. Tamari is a young woman with sandy blonde hair in 4 pigtails, teal green eyes and dressed in a short sleeve, black combat kimono with red obi. Gaara has been taken by the Akatsuki, Tamari says and Naruto clenches his fist. How long? Naruto asks. Just over a day and a half. Kankuro went after him but he was poisoned, Tamari replies. Naruto pulls down his hood and a clone pops out. Go get Mercy and Sen, he says, and the clone vanishes. Why didn't you contact me sooner? Naruto asks, walking towards Gaara's desk. I've been stuck with the council since it happened. I've been trying to slip away, Temari says, plopping on the sofa. He's still alive. The dummy seal I put over his new seal is still active. I'll bring him back, Naruto says, picking up a glove on the desk and takes a deep sniff. Another flash fills the room as Tsunade and Shizune appear with the clone, shocking Temari. Tsunade Senju, Temari shouts. Naruto tosses the glove back on the desk, for now refer to them as Mercy and Senator. I'll explain everything once I return, he says. We'll be under henges to alleviate the stress, Tsunade says, and both activate their henges. Tsunade's blonde hair now reaches her ankles and is now 2 shades darker. Her honey eyes are now a dark amethyst. Shizune's black hair turns ash white and reaches to midback with golden eyes. Alright, but Naruto, you should know the council sent for assistance from Konoha. A team should be en route, Temari says, in Naruto TSKS. Won't matter, Naruto says and heads for the window. I'll be back soon, he says, leaping out. Alright, I'll lead you to Kankuro and the other injured, Temari says, and both nod. Do you know who poisoned him? Tsunade asks. Sasori of the Red Sand, Temari replies, and Shizune gasps. That could be problem, Shizune says, but Tsunade scoffs. Unknown location. Gaara floats in a blue bubble as chakra seeps out his mouth and eyes. Surrounding him were 6 projections and 2 physical people. One is a man with long blonde hair in high ponytail and cover the left side of his face. The second is a hunched-over figure with a mask covering the lower half of his face, but what tied them all together were the black cloaks adorned with red clouds. This is taking too fucking long with all of us, one of the projection shouts. He has slicked back sliver hair and purple eyes with the Akatsuki cloak. Shut up, Hidan, a gruff voice says. He is very tall man with pupil-less green eyes and red sclera, also with a mask covering the lower half of his face. I would agree with Hidan. Kakuzu. The Ikibi container has a weak seal. The extraction should have happened already, a monotone voice comments. He has Sharingan eyes with black hair in a ponytail and pronounced tear troughs. Itachi is correct. The extraction of the Ikibi should be done, states a man with purple, rippled patterned eyes. As the Ikibi showing resistance pain, the lone female of the group. She has short blue hair in a bun and amber eyes, lavender eye shadow and a labrae piercing. We better hurry, our clones are fighting a team from Konoha. With Itachi's little brother, a man with blue skin and shark-like features. My foolish little brother. Kisame, Itachi says. However, suddenly Gaara vanishes in a flash of white. What the happened? Hidan shouts. Naruto lands with Gaara on his shoulder in full of view of them. I happened, he says. Who the hell are you and how did you get in here? Deidara shouts. Naruto shifts Gaara slightly. I am simply a ghost, he says and smirks under his hood, his hidden eyes on Itachi. Don't you just love space-time ninjutsu? Naruto adds, and a bunchin pops up next to Naruto, handing over Gaara. The clone vanishes. You are only delaying the inevitable. We will simply capture the Ikibi once again, Pain says, his purple eyes unblinking. I can tell you now. It won't be as simple as before. I come with a message. No, a warning. The Jinchuriki are under my protection, Naruto says, causing Hidan, Deidara and Kisame to laugh. You're funny, stranger. Too bad. You're about to die, Deidara shouts, tossing a small clay bird. Naruto makes a fist with his right hand. A shuriken whizzes out coated with radon, stopping the bird in its tracks. Sasori. Deidara kill him and recover the Ikibi, Pain says, as the projections cease. Naruto stood stock still as Sasori waves his tail and Deidara holds to lumps of clay. Time to show you why art is explosion, Deidara shouts. Naruto tilts his head and raises his left arm and makes a fist, causing a long blade to shoot out of his sleeve. Do not take him lightly, idiot, Sasori says, his voice gravely. Deidara glances to Sasori and that proved fatal as Naruto blinks in front of Deidara with roundhouse kick, sending him into the rock wall but as the back of his head touches the rock. Naruto slams a right straight to Deidara's head, causing spider web cracks but slowly blood starts to trickle from the blonde's ears, eyes, nose and mouth as his body falls lifeless to the ground. Now that the annoyance is dead, we can talk, Naruto says, turning to face Sasori. Talk you say, Sasori curtly replies. Naruto retracts his blade and reaches down to drag Deidara along. Yes. You and I are similar as we are both army killers, he says, dropping the corpse. I am the ghost of the Flash. Like you, I wiped out a nation with my repertoire. The fact that you haven't attacked proves you are smarter than your recently deceased partner, Naruto says, looking down at Deidara. I am. I see you are powerful. The fact you bypassed the barrier with ease. You took the cage with ease. You even killed Deidara with ease. So speak. What do you want, ghost? But first tell me what art is to you, Sasori says, and Naruto tilts his head. Art is something that is fleeting but can also be eternal. Depending on your perspective, Naruto says. I can accept that, Sasori says, and his body bursts open. Slowly a figure emerges and reveal the body was a puppet. He has wide grayish-brown eyes and short, mousy red hair with hazy or dreamy look on his face. Interesting. You are living puppet. Judging by that unblinking stare, Naruto says, and Sasori tilts his head. I am true art. Now why did you help the cage? Sasori says. I intend to break the wheel that is Jinchuriki and the system in place, Naruto starts but Sasori stares. If that is the case, join the Akatsuki, Sasori says. No offense, your organization is no different than the shinobi villages. You want to use the Jinchuriki and by extension the Biju. I'm going to break to that system. Too long have people with power used Jinchuriki for their own aims. As if they were things and not people, Naruto states. Interesting words, but what does it have to do with me? Sasori says, and Naruto extends his hand. I want you to help me break the wheel. Now I know I am unknown player in this game, but I can offer you some very good perks, Naruto says. Your parents were killed by the White Fang, right? I offer you the chance to add his son to your collection. I can even deliver you Orochimaru to you as well, Naruto adds. Interesting offers, but the Akatsuki don't take well to traitors, Sasori says, and Naruto chuckles. They are number 2 on my list. I'll deal with them in time, Naruto says and blinks behind Sasori, touching his shoulder. Please consider my offer. I'd hate to destroy you, Naruto says, blinking back to Deidara. Sasori glares and reaches for a scroll but stops. Meet me in 10 days at noon on the Tenchi Bridge in the Land of Grass. I am meeting with a spy. Concerning Orochimaru. Be there and I'll consider it, he says. Naruto picks up Deidara and hefts him on his shoulder. I'll be taking him. I'll see you in 10 days, he says, vanishing mysteriously as he arrived. This ghost is powerful. He would be a fine addition to my collection, but he very dangerous. Maybe more dangerous than Pain, Sasori thought. Tsunade. Temari stood at the gates awaiting Naruto, his clone having brought back Gaara and took him to Tsunade. Behind Temari were Team 7 and Taka, its members being Kakashi, Yamato, Ino, Sai, Sasuke, Suigetsu and Jugo. However, Sasuke was wearing a Jonin vest like Kakashi and Yamato. His outfit also consists of a light blue shirt with the Uchiha symbol on the sleeves. A pair of black cargo pants, shin guards, a light blue open front apron with red diamonds on it and boots. Temari-san, was it wise to let these unknowns save Kazekage-sama and your brother, Yamato says. Seeing that they saved my brothers without hesitation. Unlike all of you, Temari says. Shut up, Sasuke-kun needed to kill his brother, Ino says, and Temari huffs. Why are you still here anyway? The mission is cancelled because Gaara is now safe. No thanks to the mighty Konoha. You were only concerned with missing Nin than a cage, Temari adds. We would like to meet Kazekage-sama's savior, Kakashi comments. In the distance a silhouette appears with something on its shoulder. HN doesn't look tough, Sasuke comments and Suigetsu titters. Maybe I can cut him up, Suigetsu says. Naruto comes into view but his eyes narrow under his hood. It had to be them, he thought. Tamari-san has the cage woken up, Naruto says, reaching the main gate. Not yet Ghost but Mercy and Sen are looking after him and Kankuro, Tamari says but sees the body. Naruto removes his hood and turns slightly to show Deidara's corpse. He was one of your attackers. Sasori got away for now, he says but his gaze meets the Konoha group. Ghost? Yamato questions. My name is Ghost but you can call me Menma. I didn't see you on the way back. So you ran away, Naruto says. Sasuke reaches for his Chikudo with a snarl on his face. We don't run. We encountered Itachi Uchiha and Kisame Hoshigaki known missing nin but they turned out to be carefully made clones, he explains. And what happened after that? You ran away rather than continuing after the cage, Naruto says, matter-of-factly. Don't talk like that to Sasuke-kun, Ino shouts and Naruto winces. So what happened then? Naruto says, checking for blood. Kisami's clone said someone had taken the cage. So we retreated, Kakashi states. Naruto rubs his forehead with a shake of his head but spies a very familiar sword on Suigetsu's back. That's the Kubikiribocho. Last I heard it was in the possession of Zabuza Momochi, he says. Suigetsu gives Naruto a grin. I reclaimed it. Get this. It was being used as a grave marker with some hunter mask. I broke it and took the sword. I plan on collecting all 7 mist swords, he says, in a cocky tone. So Konoha desecrate the dead then. A word of advice. Those that desecrate the dead are judged to join their ranks, Naruto says, his eyes narrowed. You call yourself Ghost. Dickless is in Ghost of the Flash, Sai says and his group gasps but Naruto rubs his eyes. Putting that insult aside, I am Ghost or Ghost of Spring. Ghost of the Flash but as I said call me Menma. Now I would like to collect the bounty on him and check on the cage, Naruto says, walking past the group. Fight me, Sasuke says and Naruto stops but keeps walking off, with a shake of his head and a sigh. Tamari starts to follow but stops and turns to the Konoha group. I'll send payment to your Hokage for requesting the mission but I want all of you to leave. If you decide to press, you will break our neutrality agreement. Now leave, she says. Not until I fight the Ghost of the Flash, Sasuke says, reaching for his sword but Kakashi stops him. That enough Sasuke, Kakashi says and leans closer. Hokage-sama has invited him to Konoha. You can challenge him there, he whispers. Sasuke scoffs and turns on his heels. HN, he says, as the group takes off. Tamari watches them leave and sighs. How can the council be so stupid to ask for them, she thought, catching up to Naruto. He was standing near a pole with his arms folded and a lollipop in his mouth. What happened to the Akatsuki member? Tamari says, as Naruto falls in step with her. I had a clone take it to the bounty office, Naruto says, as they make their way to the hospital. So a neutrality agreement. Gaara never told me, Naruto says and Tamari nods. Yeah, Gaara wanted to break our alliance. After seeing Konoha's treatment of you but we were still weak from the invasion. So we signed a neutrality and trade agreement. However those old fools on the council still placate Konoha for anything, Tamari explains. How about a trade alliance with Spring? I can talk to Koyuki and have her convince the Wind Daimyo, Naruto says, as they reach Gaara's room. That would be a big help, Tamari says, opening the door. Tsunade was looking through the chart as Shizune was healing. Took you long enough Menma, Tsunade says. Sorry ran into some old friends. Team 7 and Sasuke. Who is a Jonin by the way, Naruto says, closing the door. I thought he was with Orochimaru, Shizune says. Naruto plops in a chair and moves his lollipop around in his mouth. Danzo may have called them back but to make the Tem a Jonin and he's got merry little band of misfits too. One who took Zabuza's sword and broke Haku's mask, he says, crushing his lollipop with crunch. Anyway, how's Catboy? Naruto says and Tamari snorts. He's stable. I extracted the poison and made an antidote. I even impressed the old bag Chio. I told her we convinced me to train us, Tsunade explains. How long before he wakes up? Naruto asks and Shizune stops her mystic palm. A few hours. Tamari-san has gotten a room as the Oasis Hotel for the time being, Shizune states. Naruto rises from his seat with a yawn. Alright. I'm going for a soak. Send a clone if Gaara wakes up, he says, excusing himself. XXX. Naruto sighs contently as he sinks into the large hot spring with a small tray of sake on a floating tray. He has his face covered by a towel and his fox ears twitching in content, but the sound of water sloshing catches him and he hides them. How'd you manage to escape? Naruto muses, taking a sip of sake. A woman takes a seat next to Naruto with a towel covering her head. He's a heavy sleeper, she says. How are things after my display? Naruto asks. Pain is quite perturbed. Sasori has gone dark and Zetsu confirmed hints of Deidara's death, she says. I may or may not have convinced Sasori to aid me by dangling Kakashi and Orochimaru in front of him. We're meeting in 10 days in grass country on the Tenchi Bridge, Naruto states, taking another bump of sake. Should I inform Pain of this? She asks, but Naruto shakes his head. No. I can deal with Sasori if this goes sideways. Anyway, how's your health? Naruto asks. It's slowly progressing. I may take you up on your offer, she says. If it gets worse, use my kunai and I'll pull you out. Will the other one defect if needed? Naruto asks, his eyes closed. She is willing. Pain's actions as of late are worrying her. Their vision of things is differing from the original goal, she says. If she needs a nudge, reveal Danzo and Jiraiya's actions to her. She can be vital ally, Naruto says and feels a kiss on his cheek. I will. Goodbye Menma-kun, she says. Naruto opens his eyes and his companion is gone. Geez. She like a bat, he muses. Who's like a bat? Tsunade says, stepping into the water in a towel and her hair pinned up. Naruto pushes his tray to her. No one. Gaara awake? He asks, but Tsunade shakes her head. Not yet. I wanted a soak. I'm curious about something. You said you wanted destroy Konoha but only those who follow Danzo. What if? Tsunade asks. What if the whole of Konoha follows him? Naruto starts but sighs. Then they die. I am no longer the naive and stupid child that you met those years ago. I've gained some of Kurama's cynical worldview. The people of Konoha are sheep. They hate me for carrying Kurama. Yet they revere my father. The civilians of Konoha believe they know shinobi things. You saw it firsthand in council meetings. The civilians insert themselves into things they know nothing about, Naruto adds. Is that why Koyuki wants shinobi loyal to her alone but fight for the people from the shadows? Tsunade says, after a bump of sake. Yes, a shinobi should not serve two masters. All shinobi suffer from this, but Konoha has taken it too far. The previous Hokage would weep at how Konoha has perverted itself. Present company included, Naruto says and Tsunade scoffs. Preach. Those fools would never have done this if my grandfather or granduncle were alive. Hell Sensei in his prime, Tsunade says. Naruto rises to his feet and Tsunade sees the numerous tattoos of foxes, spirals and flowers on his body, but his scars drew her in, with the Chidori wound to his chest being the prominent. I kept them as reminders to keep me on my path, Naruto says, wrapping a towel his waist, but her eyes widen. Across Naruto's upper back was the word demon with bleeding letters. This I had done. I usually keep it under a hinge, he says, raising his arms. Randy Orton pose. As I said, tell someone a lie long enough. They'll start to believe it, Naruto says, before a pair of arms ensnare him behind. I'm so sorry Naruto, Tsunade whispers. You don't have to apologize to me Tsunade. Come on, let's go check on Gaara. So we can go home, Naruto says and Tsunade nods into his back. The pair dry themselves and gets redressed to make their way to the hospital. XXX. Gaara slowly opens his eyes to a white ceiling and the smell of medical cleaner. Kage-sama, a voice says, and he sees Shizune. Who are you? Gaara asks. My name is Sen and I am an ally of Ghost, Shizune says, and Gaara's eyes widen. The door opens as Tamari enters with Kankuro in wheelchair. Gaara. Thank Kami, she says. Gaara slowly sits up with a groan. I owe Ghost my life, he whispers. So do I for bringing mercy and Sen, Kankuro says, and Shizune gives him a cup of water, followed by Gaara. Where is he? Gaara asks. He should be on his way back. He is anxious to see you. It's good thing Tamari-san could use his kunai, Shizune states. Gaara the council sent for a Konoha team, Tamari says, and his eyes narrow. However, Ghost made it back before they arrived, but I paid them for the request to appease them for the moment, she adds. The door opens as Naruto and Tsunade enter. Finally awake Gaara, he says. Thanks to you, Ghost, Gaara says, but Naruto waves his hand. You can call me by my real name. You are among allies, Naruto says and places his hand on the door. You can drop your hinges, he adds, shocking both Kankuro and Gaara as Tsunade and Shizune reveal themselves. Godime-sama, Gaara says, and Tsunade slowly nods. Yes. Naruto faked our deaths to escape Konoha before Danzo Shimura lead a coup, Tsunade explains. Gaara cups his chin in thought and rubs his eyes. This is shocking to say the least, he says. True. When I saw Naruto alive, I was of a similar mind, Tsunade comments, and Shizune nods. Anyway, Gaara, Tamari told me about your neutrality agreement with Konoha, Naruto says, and Gaara sighs. We were desperate and we still recovering from my father's mistakes. I would like nothing better to tear up that agreement, Gaara says. You may get that chance. I will speak with Koyuki about a full trade alliance with Suna, allowing you to get out from under Konoha's umbrella, Naruto says, and the Sand siblings gasp. You would do that, Naruto? Gaara asks, and Naruto nods. You are a brother in arms and a friend, Naruto says. Gaara, I want to speak with him, Shukaku shouts, and Gaara grips his head. Shukaku wishes to speak with you, Gaara says, and Naruto tilts his head. Still mad at me? Naruto says, holding out his fist, and Gaara bumps it. The pair found themselves in a large space with the looming form of Shukaku. Hello, Shukaku. How can I help you? Naruto asks, and Shukaku leans down. You may be the one father envisioned, and the mark on your hand symbolizes this. I wish to offer you some of my chakra. You will be able to generate magnetic forces, Shukaku says. Amazing, can the others do this as well? Naruto asks, and Shukaku nods, holding out his paw. Yes. Now touch my paw, Shukaku says, and Naruto touches with right hand, before a surge of chakra rushes into his body. Naruto grits his teeth in pain, but it soon passes. Thank you, Shukaku. I will use this power for my cause, he says. Naruto and Gaara open their eyes. Thanks, Gaara, he says. Likewise, Gaara says. What happened? Tsunade says, and Naruto grins. It's a Jinchuriki thing, Naruto says, and Tsunade frowns. Can I leave the hospital? Gaara asks, and Tsunade uses her mystic palm. Yes, but Kankuro needs to stay until tomorrow, Tsunade replies. We'll stay until tomorrow and return. I'll send a clone to inform the others, Naruto says, and both nod. Naruto. Tsunade-sama. Shizune-san. Thank you for saving my brothers, Tamari says, into a bow. Naruto raises and waves his hands. It was nothing, Tamari. You three are my friends and precious people. I'll always come to your aid, he says, and all three nod. If you excuse us, we'll turn in for the night, Naruto says, as the three excuse themselves. So what now? Team 7 will no doubt inform Danzo of your presence, Shizune says, and Naruto scoffs. Let him. Spreads the infamy, Naruto says. I would agree. This way it keeps that bastard from committing his forces to find him, Tsunade states, reaching their hotel. There is only one bed, Shizune says. Naruto slowly slips off his coat. We're all grown unless you get handsy, he says. Shizune blushes bright red and covers her face. I'm going for a soak, she says and rushes off, leaving Tsunade and Naruto. The latter slips off his boots and plops on the bed, unbutton his shirt to reveal a white wife beater. Naruto, Tsunade says and Naruto looks up, as she tosses her coat and leaving her suit vest. Warning. Tsunade kicks off her boots and straddles Naruto but the latter arches an eyebrow. I know you and Hinata had that first night in spring and now I want to, she says, running her fingers along his shirt. Shizune may come back, Naruto says but Tsunade smirks. She can join us. An incest tryst, Tsunade says, pulling his shirt from his pants. Naruto arches an eyebrow again as Tsunade giggles. Well, I am old enough to be your mother and you call Shizune sister, she says, settling on top of him to capture his mouth. Naruto parts his lips and their tongues swirl around one another, her right hand grasping his crotch. You're at half-mast, Tsunade coos, stroking his member through his pants. Naruto groans but Tsunade lifts off him to unbutton her vest and revealing her 106 centimeters breasts. Hinata's almost my size but you know that right, she says, licking her lips and takes off her pants. Tsunade kneels as Naruto sits up and takes off shirt. Stand up, she says and he complies. She unbuckles his pants and they drop to the floor as his chub was bugling in his boxer briefs. Pulling it free she strokes to get more of a rise. Did Hinata do this? Tsunade coos, licking the head and slowly slipping it in her mouth. Naruto groans and shakes his head as Tsunade bobs her head and her hands grip his hands grasping her head with small thrusts. Tsunade picks up her pace as Naruto fucks her mouth, small gags as she deep-throats him. Naruto's breath becomes heavy as Tsunade keeps her pace but suddenly her cheeks bulge as he comes. Ha, ha, ha. No, Hinata didn't do that, Naruto says, as Tsunade drinks down his seed. She pulls back with a wet pop and opens her mouth wide to show she swallowed. We'll teach her, she coos. Tsunade gets to her feet and climbs into the bed. My turn. Show how good you are, she purrs, spreading her legs and running her fingers along her panties. Naruto finishes taking off his briefs and climbs into, starting with butterfly kisses to her belly, thighs and inner thighs. She sighs and kneads her left but winces in pleasure as Naruto flicks her with his tongue. Naya, Tsunade cries, as Naruto runs his tongue along her slit with his thumb rubbing her bundle of nerves. Naruto grips her hips as his ministrations elicits heavy breathing and soft to loud moans from the former Hokage, causing her right hand to grip his head to push him further in. Naruto prods her insides with his tongue, his mouth ing on her as love juice seeps into his mouth. More, right there. Hiya. Ikuu, Tsunade cries, arching her back. Naruto lifts up with a lick of his mouth and a smirk on his face. So how did I do? He says. Ah, ha, ha. You are the real deal, Tsunade says and sees he's hard again. Naruto climbs next to her and Tsunade turns on her side, allowing him to lift her left leg and he slowly inserts himself inside. Tsunade cries out in pleasure as Naruto stretches her wall. Kimochi, she coos, as he starts moving. Naruto snakes his right arm under her to grasp her as his thrusts were slow deep, craning her head. Tsunade captures his mouth once more. Tsunade-sama. Naruto-kun, Shizune says, opening the door but her eyes widen. Tsunade clips her eyes to Shizune and smiles. Shizune, come join us. He feels. Naya. So good, she says. Yeah, join us Oni-chan. You said, you wanted to help me. Onagai Oni-chan, Naruto says, latching onto Tsunade's left breast. Shizune stood stock still with red cheeks as Tsunade's moans fill the room with Naruto grunts. Slowly she slips off her robe and lets it drop, revealing a simple white bra and panties. She makes her way to the bed as Tsunade comes once again. Just lay next to me, Tsunade says, between moans. Naruto pulls out as Tsunade straddles her apprentice. These have gotten bigger. Sakura too, she coos, grasping the younger girl's right breast. Shizune winces with red cheeks as the older woman pulls her bra down, before gently biting the younger's breast. Naruto slides into Tsunade once again doggy style. Oni-chan kiss Ka-chan, he purrs. Shizune looks into Tsunade's honey orbs and she leans up to capture her ruby lips with soft and inexperienced kisses, but the older takes control as Naruto rocks her from behind. Shizune moans in Tsunade's mouth, but Naruto pulls out and slaps the blonde's plump rear with his member. Tsunade move, Naruto says, and Tsunade obliges, giving Shizune a look at his rock-hard member. Naruto spies a wet spot in Shizune's panties and moves them aside. Are you a virgin, Oni-chan? He asks, and she blushes brightly. Let's change that, he adds, sliding inside. Ai! Shizune cries, as she squirts her love juices. Tsunade titters as Naruto fully sheathes himself inside Shizune. Ho ho, she's a squirter, she says, playing with Shizune's breasts. Naruto grabs Shizune's wrists and starts rocking his hips with a rhythmic pace, garnering pitched moans from her. How do I feel inside you, Oni-chan? Naruto asks, but Shizune was lost in her lust, so much her fox ears were out. She's at our mercy, Tsunade coos, and Naruto grins wide. 2 hours later, Naruto was on his back with Shizune passed out next to him and a heavy panting Tsunade on his chest. That was amazing. We so need to rub this in Jiraiya's face, she says, and Naruto smirks. Ends. Next day, Naruto and his companions make their way to the Cage mansion to meet with Gaara before heading back to Spring. How much are you gonna tell Gaara? Tsunade asks, feeling refreshed and no longer unsure. Naruto wiggles a lollipop in his mouth. Just basics. Suna is still allied with Konoha, and if Gaara knows too much, it can be detrimental, he says. I wonder what the others are doing, Shizune says, also refreshed as well. Anko and Sum are probably drinking all my booze, Naruto muses, and Tsunade laughs, as they reach the mansion. Anbu were waiting at the mansion gate and led them inside. The cage waiting for you, she says, opening the door. Naruto and his pair of mate find Gaara as his desk and Temari sitting on a sofa. Morning all, Naruto says. Morning, Gaara replies. Naruto takes a seat in front of Gaara as Tsunade and Shizune take a seat on another sofa. So where do you want me to start? He asks. The death of the Godime, Gaara replies and holds out his hand, as Naruto places a lollipop in his hand. Well, I came to Konoha to scope things out. People despised my existence and were quite happy I was dead, Naruto starts. The current Rokudime and the council repealed a law my sensei created to keep the younger generation pure, but frankly it didn't work as the older generation told their children to avoid Naruto at all cost, Tsunade comments. Indeed, in a bid for me to not have a safe haven to return to. My supposed friends and comrades turned on me. Whether due to stupidity, laziness, or simple blind hate, Naruto says, and Temari frowns. I waited a few days to scout and set up some things. Before going see Tsunade, she told me who was still loyal to me and gathered them all up except a few others. I used the Hiraishin to get them out and a few exploding clones to do the rest, Naruto explains. I left another clone for the fallout and learned Danzo was quickly named Rokudime. At the same time, I took everyone to Uzushio and transferred some of my Biju chakra and turned them all into pseudo-fox Biju using my 6th path Yang chakra, Naruto explains. Gaara sat in thought as Temari rises from her seat. Can they transform into full foxes like you can? She asks. Other than ears and tails. No, but they are stronger and more durable than before with larger reserves akin to the Uzumaki clan, Naruto replies, as Temari hands him glass of water. So what will you do now? Akatsuki will have you on their radar and Konoha as well, Gaara says. My goal is break the shinobi system and the use of Jinchuriki as weapons. To make sure people like us are never used like this again, Naruto says, and Gaara slowly nods. Iwa and Kumo won't take that lightly. The Tsuchikage is old school and the Raikage is all about strength, Gaara states. True. I know it won't be easy, but this is something I will do, Naruto says, and Gaara sees the conviction in those blue orbs. Things are changing slowly here. I opened a shinobi academy for those less fortunate. I've seen some promising people, Gaara says. Though good. The old generation is still stuck in past and will look down on your choices for change, Naruto says and rises from his seat. Be safe, brother, and if you need me, I'll be here in a flash, Naruto says and rises from his seat. Gaara holds out a scroll to Naruto. Take this scroll. It will help with your new skills, he says, and Naruto takes it with a nod. Tsunade and Shizune grasp Naruto's shoulders as they vanish in a flash of white, and Gaara sits back down. The world will start to change and we need to stay ahead of it to see it through, though. Danzo stares at Kakashi's report and their failure to save the cage. He saved the cage and killed a S-rank missing nin with relative ease, it seems, he says, tossing the report. Opposite Danzo was Jiraiya and he picks up the report. He's proving his S-rank status. Spring surely has found a diamond among the trash, he says. Indeed. Sasuke has expressed a want to face this ghost, Danzo comments. I don't doubt the Uchiha's ability, but rushing into battle with an unknown is worrying, Jiraiya comments. It seems the Spring Daimyo was correct that he wasn't in country, Danzo says, and Jiraiya nods. This actress may use this to her advantage to curry favor for alliances with other nations, Danzo adds. She is indeed a good actress. I want her to star in Ika Ika movie, Jiraiya says, and Danzo shakes his head. We need to bring this ghost in. I want you to go to Spring and convince Ghost to come to Konoha, Danzo orders, and Jiraiya nods, before heading out the window. A knock on the door echoes and it opens to reveal Ino. Hokage-sama, she says. What is it, Yamanaka? Danzo states. Ino closes the door and stood at ease. Did Kakashi-sensei report to you my findings? She asks. He did. 2 med nin on par with the former Godime and her apprentices, Danzo asks, and Ino nods. The one called Mercy claims she conned the traitor into teaching herself and Sen, Ino says. And you believe Tsunade could have taught others? Danzo comments, and Ino nods. I will look into it, he says. Thank you, Hokage-sama, Ino says and excuses herself. Danzo rises from his seat and heads to the window. Ghost may have met these two. What other secrets does this ghost have? He thought. Spring Country. Naruto was on the roof of his main house in a seiza position as numerous clones were going over the scroll Gaara gave him. Hinata was next to him in a similar position as Sum and Hana were out with their ninkin. Yugao was practicing several sword katas, while Tsunade and the others were meeting with Koyuki to look over the shinobi candidates. Naruto-kun, do you want any of us to accompany you to Grass Country? Hinata asks. Naruto slowly opens his eyes and rubs his head as a few clones have dispelled. I don't trust Sasori. However, I need him. He is a means to an end, he says. Means to an end? Hinata asks. Naruto lays back on the roof to stare at the clouds. Yes. He can help with my objectives and can be an asset to our tiny mercenary band, he says and sighs. I can see why Shikamaru likes looking at the cloud, he muses. Hinata lays back onto his stomach with a frown. He betrayed you, Naruto-kun, she says. It would have been too troublesome not to. Shikamaru is smart. He knows what I am, but being that he is lazy, it's just easier to go with the crowd than walking against the norm. Choji will follow because he a gullible fool. Shino will take the logical path despite the fact the Aburame are shunned to an extent, Naruto states. Neji reverted back to his fate spiel after it was announced about your death. Once he learned the truth, he said fate was rectifying his loss to you. Kiba has been trying to bed me, but Sum-sama and Hana-san had been rebuking his actions. It was part of the reason their clan is splintering, Hinata says, and Naruto growls. Tenten follows Neji like a fangirl. Lee is such a hypocrite. You brought Tsunade-sama back to Konoha to be Hokage and saved him, but the moment he learns the truth, he turned his back on you, Hinata adds, with a small hiss. Naruto softly laughs and flicks Hinata's nose. Don't worry about them, Haim. We'll deal with them when the time comes, he says. Oi Gaki. We're back, Anko shouts. The pair get to their feet and leap down, following Anko inside where everyone was sitting in the living room. Alright, if Tsunade hasn't already told you. I will meeting missing Nin Sasori of the Red Sand in Grass Country, Naruto starts. Is that wise? He is partially responsible for taking the cage, Sakura states. While true, Sasori is means to an end for me. I will using him to lure out Zetsu. If it fails, I'll kill him and move on to another plan. Simple as that, Naruto explains. And if Sasori plays ball and lures Zetsu out, Hana questions, petting one of her triplets. Then Sasori may assist us as a member of Kuroya Yuhi, Naruto says and gets several confused looks. Kuroya Yuhi or Black Sunset is our answer to Akatsuki. We'll be mercenaries in a similar vein to them. We'll collect bounties and grow our reputation, he adds. That is interesting. It garners us notoriety and give us an end to enter say Konoha under the guise of bounty hunters, Tsunade says and Naruto smirks. Exactly. Konoha already wants to meet me. Sasuke will no doubt whine to Danzo and force the issue, Naruto says. Ino as well. She was being very nosy. When we were healing Kankuro-san and Kasukage-sama. Tsunade-sama cooked up the story that we sought her out and we conned her into teaching us, Shizune explains. I bet that'll scare that mummy. 2 med nin on par with the slug princess. It'll have him wondering about our ghost, Anko states. One can hope for that. Now like the Akatsuki we will be working in groups. Our med team will be Tsunade, Sakura and Shizune. Our T and I strike team will be Anko, Yugao and Hinata. Our tracker team will be Sum and Hana. I will be a single strike team but these aren't permanent and subject to change. Depending on the mission, Naruto explains and gets several nods of approval. So how was with Tsunade and Shizune? Sum says, causing the latter to eat in shock. He can eat you out like a champion, Tsunade comments and Naruto face palms. Anko laughs loudly but also licks her lips. Mama likes, she croons and Naruto sighs, thinking of putting seal on his bedroom door for the foreseeable future. Aim. Diva Pain looks down at his rain-laden domain from the highest tower, his unblinking eyes unwavering in his quest. Footsteps catch his ears and he turns to his faithful companion. Has Sasori been located, Conan? Diva Pain asks. No. Sasori has gone dark, Conan states. What of Deidara's ring? Diva Pain asks. Zetsu managed to sneak into Suna and recover the ring. Security is still under heavy guard due to the attack, Conan says. Diva Pain's eyes narrow at the mention of their failure to capture and seal the Ikibi. What of this ghost? He asks. He is in the bingo book. His origins are unknown but Zetsu and Sasori's reports said. He turned up in spring as some phantom saving the country from genocide by the land of sky. Iwa dubbed him the Ghost of the Flash and the people call him the Ghost of Spring. He used various clones in the battle and used speed akin the Kiroi Senko. Also wielding a pitch-black sword and power enough to sink the floating island, Conan explains. I see. His threat to stop us collecting the Biju is laughable. This ghost will not stand in our way of peace, Diva Pain says. His thinking is not dissimilar to our own. He seems to wish to protect them. Even from their nations, Conan says. It matters not. He is an enemy of peace to stand against us. As God he is a threat, Diva Pain says and turns to Conan. Contact Zetsu and have him find and kill Sasori, he orders. And if he encounters Ghost, Conan asks. And nothing. Zetsu is to kill him as well. Contact the others to keep an eye out for this ghost and kill him should the opportunity arise, Diva Pain states and Conan bows, turning on her heels. Nagato. You are changing too much. Yahiko would be horrified to see you this way, Conan thought. This ghost is threat to our goals, a voice says, halting Conan in her tracks. She turns to a tall and lithe figure with a orange spiral mask with a lone eye, poking from the hooded cloak. He could also be an ally. Madara, Conan says. He fights for a small and weak country. He has prowess in battle but he is a big fish in small pond, Madara states. Then wouldn't it be best to recruit him to our cause? Conan says, but Madara's eye narrows. No. Our god has commanded his death and Toby is a good boy, Madara says, and a distortion forms around his eye, before he is swallowed. Conan stood for a moment but continues on. I do not trust him, she thought. Spring country. Warning. Naruto scrunches his face as the sun shines into bedroom, but a heavy sigh escapes his mouth, causing his eyes to shoot open. Naruto looks down and sees a large lump on his bed. Lifting the sheet, he sees a mop of purple hair. The owner of said hair was moving her head up and down, her slitted brown eyes full of mischief. Morning blowjob. Like it? Anko coos, stroking him. Naruto rubs his forehead with a sigh. How did you get in here? He asks. Anko ignores the question and uses her snake-like tongue to swirl around the engorged organ. Teehee. You forgot to put it up. 9 days I bided my time and success. Kukuku. Anko purrs, engulfing his member. Naruto sighs with a look as Anko keeps bobbing her head, but she didn't want Naruto to be left out, shifting her body to where her amenko was right in his face. Come on Naruto-kun, show me that skill. Don't worry, I put up a silencing seal, Anko says, but Naruto was a bit surprised that Anko was completely shaved, running his fingers along her slit and a shocked gasp escapes Anko's lips. Ho ho. Sensitive huh? Naruto thought, pinching her. The snake mistress seizes and her body trembles, but a drawn-out moan echoes as Naruto introduced his tongue. For the next 10 minutes both tried to make the other come, but it was Anko who unleashes a drawn-out and heavy moan as her orgasm struck, sending her love nectar into Naruto's mouth. He follows shortly after and Anko's cheeks bulge to take Naruto's first load of the morning. The pair were breathing heavy, but Anko notices Naruto was still at full mast, gaining a cheeky grin on her face. She crawls off Naruto and squats over his member, before slowly descending with gritted teeth as it stretches her inside. Anko. You're so tight, Naruto says. Anko grins wide with a giggle. Gonna come again, she says. Naruto shakes his head and interlocks their hands. You, he counters, and Anko scoffs, as she starts rocking her hips. Anko's heavy breathing and moans fill the room, but Naruto sits up, gripping her butt to push himself deeper. Ah, Naya, Anko cries, wrapping her arms around his neck. The pair smash their lips together with a furious pace, their tongues fighting a fierce battle. Anko throws her head back as another orgasm shoots through her body, before biting Naruto on the shoulder like the others to signify him as her mate. Anko collapses back as a quick third orgasm spasms through her body, but Naruto keeps up his pace. She bites her finger as her body flops about with a look of orgasmic bliss, but she secures Naruto with her legs. Ha, 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 Mato, Mato. Faster, Anko cries. Naruto grunts and growls as he pounds Anko, but with a deep thrust, his hot spunk filled Anko's womb and a fourth orgasm erupts. Anko arches her back with a wide and wild expression on her face as her tongue lolls out her mouth, her breath heavy and deep. I am so wrecked. Ha, ha, ha. No man or woman will please me ever again, Anko whispers. End. An hour later, Naruto makes way to the kitchen for breakfast, finding Hinata and Tsunade making food. Morning Naruto. Naruto-kun. Both said, and Naruto waves his hand, taking a seat at the table. Anko won't be joining us for breakfast, Naruto says. Tsunade places a glass of orange juice in front of him, so this makes 4 now, she insinuates, and Naruto sighs with a nod. I accidentally left the seal off my room and she snuck in, Naruto states. So Anko finally caught ya huh? Hell pup, I might as you to turn me too, Tsum says, strolling up with a shit-eating grin. Naruto rubs his forehead as the others enter. Please don't, he whispers. You didn't force Anko, Sakura says, her green eyes glowering him. It was the other way around. She snuck into my room and they took advantage of me, Naruto says, defending himself, but Tsum laughs. Anko's been waiting for you to slip up. Ha ha ha, Tsum says. So today is the day huh? Hana asks and Naruto nods, stuffing some sausage into his mouth. I sent out some clones yesterday to scout around and mark a suitable spot to Hiraishin to undercover. Sasori didn't give a specific time other than noon, Naruto explains. Naruto-kun, you should really bring one of us with you, Hinata suggests, but Naruto shakes his head. I'll be fine, Naruto assures. And if Sasori is sketchy, Tsunade asks, and Naruto runs his finger across his neck. The breakfast continues as they eat their fill and break off to their daily routines. Naruto tosses his coat on his bed, before slipping his mesh shirt into his black cargo pants. Next, Naruto slips on a dark blue and skin-tight shirt with dark blue gloves and metal guards on top, before pulling up his mask over his mouth. Naruto-kun, Hinata says, and Naruto turns, grabbing his coat. I need a favor, Haim. I need you to put up a paralysis barrier in the courtyard, Naruto says. For Sasori, Hinata says, and Naruto nods, slipping on his coat. Naruto makes a fist and his hidden blade shoot out. Yeah. He still can't be trusted. Even if he works with us, he says, retracting his blade. Hinata follows Naruto outside to the courtyard. Squatting down, he places a Hiraishin mark down. Just set it up around here. Be back soon, Naruto says and vanishes. Hinata heads back inside and to retrieve her Fuinjutsu supplies, informing the others of Naruto's plan. Tenchi Bridge. Sasori slowly makes his way toward his target but comes to halt as Naruto stood next to a tree with his arms folded. You're on time. Good, I hate waiting, Sasori says, as Naruto falls into step with him. I like being punctuality. Tardiness is a weakness, Naruto comments, remembering his former sensei. However, unknown to Sasori, the former Konoha shinobi has clones waiting and searching for a particular entity. Has Akatsuki come searching for you? Naruto asks. Sasori scoffs with a swish of his tail. I've stayed off their radar for now, but I doubt they have remained idle in searching for me. Zetsu will come searching, he comments. Zetsu? Naruto questions, faking ignorance. He is the Akatsuki's spy behind me, Sasori replies. The pair reach the bridge, but Naruto hangs back behind a tree, his eyes closed and his senses focused. A cloaked figure slowly makes their way onto the bridge, but Naruto ignores their talking, but a smile graces his lips and he vanishes in a white flash, leaving a clone in his place. About a mile away from Tenchi Bridge was a curious and almost out-of-place thing. It resembles a large Venus flytrap, but it wears a black cloak with red clouds. The flytrap slowly opens to reveal a person with a literal black and white side. When do we strike Sasori and his companion? The white half says. Soon, but the companion with Sasori is odd. It's the one who killed Deidara, the black side says. So they're working together. Sasori has betrayed the Akatsuki, white says. Black's eyes narrow, but suddenly a black sword erupts from their body. Found you, a voice hisses. What is this? White exclaims. Naruto rounds them with an amused smile under his hood. Its name is Zangetsu. Zetsu-san, he says, facing the pair. Zetsu tries to sink into the ground, but Naruto laughs. Don't bother. I've placed a barrier around us. You can't run away as usual, he says. You're the ghost of spring, Black says, and Naruto nods. I am. So you were there. Watching like the coward you are, Naruto says. Zetsu tries to move, but kanji starts to spread from the sword and onto their bodies. What is this? Black hisses. Old man Hagoromo left that sword and one other to his son Asura with very specific instructions on its purpose. Naruto starts and removes his hood. Hagoromo. How do you know that name? Black says. Naruto slowly reaches for his right glove. Well, I am one of 9, but I am one of a pair, he says, revealing his son mark. Impossible, Asura's reincarnation, White says, and Naruto smiles. The very same. Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze at your service in the new Kyubi no Yoko, Naruto says, revealing his tails. So you've been hiding these last 2.5 years. No matter, Madara's will be done, Black says. Stop trying to lie, Black Zetsu. Today is your death day and mommy dearest stays sealed, Naruto says, and Black freezes. Ho, I caught you off guard. A first for you. Hagoromo told me everything. How you manipulated Indra into fighting his brother. Every sinister machination in world has had your black fingers around it. All in a bid to bring back mommy dearest, Naruto adds. Mother deserves to live. You are but pawns to bring her back. Kagaya's will is only truth in this world, Black shouts. All you are is a child. Whining for his mommy. You shape the world into a never-ending wheel to bring Kagaya back. An endless cycle of hate and war. However that ends today. I will break that wheel with my will, Naruto shouts, spreading his arms out. A Rasengan forms with flames, slowly growing and growing. In the left hand another Rasengan forms with whipping wind into a screeching shuriken. You are nothing compared to Kagaya's will. You are just another part of the shinobi history I created. A brat like you can never destroy me, Black shouts. He doesn't seem to care, White says, struggling to free himself. Naruto brings the large balls of wind and flames together. You are wrong, Black Zetsu. The shinobi world was built on the lives and deaths of many people. This combined Rasengan will obliterate you to nothing and Zangetsu will destroy everything connected to you. Old man Hagoromo suspected your existence and took steps. Zangetsu and Tensa Zangetsu were forged for that purpose. Disrupting your chakra and poisoning it, he says. For the first time in its life Black Zetsu felt fear, and no. I won't be erased. Mother help me, he shouts. Your shadow has loomed over the shinobi world too